Okay, so we need to get some butterflies into here. You were given in the materials, in the resources, 4 files that have some butterflies. So here's one without the butterflies clipped. Here's one without the butterfly clipped. And there's 2 that has the butterflies actually clipped out. Okay, so that makes things a little easier for you. You have these if you want to get the others, which I suggest you try. You can clip those out, and then of course this one is already here, and you have the 1 from this. So before we go too far into that, I just want to mention the pen tool with clipping. So many of you, if you didn't cover the pen tool in a previous class, if you weren't in my class, or if you just have other ways of using Photoshop, that's not a problem. The reason that I stress the use of the pen tool in this case is for accuracy, especially when you get into something like this that has a background on it, and it can be quite difficult to isolate using the quick selection tools to isolate something like this. Even, you know, when you look at how thin this is, this little antenna here, that's going to be pretty difficult to get a nice clean isolation from. Also, this image isn't too high in resolution, so the automatic tools, they can be challenging. So one of the favorites is the magic wand, right? If I choose this with the magic wand, it's going to select some. I have to hold shift, select more and more, and keep selecting. So that's kind of out on this one because of the nature of the graphic, the colors, the various sections. So I'll deselect, so Command D. But if I want to use the magic wand outside, that again, I have to press shift, and eventually I might get to where I have a somewhat of a clean selection around it, but it's not going to be too accurate, and it's also going to have all of these other things around it. So even this is just not practical, and you can see that's not a clean selection. So if I had to pull this out, you know, again, they like to use quick select. I never use that. I find it for the most part quite useless unless it's very high contrast. Same with of course, the magic wand tool, but you also have the magnetic lasso that many like. That again is primarily based in a high contrast, high res environment. So, you know, I can go along there and I can kind of hope for the best with it. I'm not going to do the whole thing here. I'm just going to kind of cut halfway through, but you'll see even that is not very accurate. That's not a clean clip. So the pen tool comes in what we call this function of close cropping. So I go to the pen tool, and this isn't a full-on pen tool lesson, but I would suggest if you want to learn more about using it, look up some videos and so on. This is a fantastic tool to know. This will open up so many avenues for Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, After Effects, and so on. So you have the Paths palette. I'm just going to open that. And now you'll see when I start to draw with this, and this tool takes some getting used to because it is quite challenging to learn, but so valuable. What it is, well, first of all, it should not be called the pen tool. It should be called the click tool or something, because when we say pen, we think we should click and drag. Well, that's not the case. When we start, we should not click and drag. We should find kind of a corner or a stop like this, click and let go. And then I'm going to go down here, click and hold, and I'm dragging to get this path to match what I want to trace. And I'm trying to get this handle that I'm holding to go, which I refer to as the forward handle. I'm trying to get it to go into the direction I want to go. Now I'm also holding the space bar so that I can move this a bit and more accurately land that trace while holding the handle to keep going. So that looks pretty good. And then I'll go down here, click and hold. Now, this handle is not going in the direction I want to go. I want to go here, it's going there. So if I try to go there, it's going to say, well, let's compromise and we'll each take some of it. Well, that's not what I want. I want to get a clean clip here. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to hold Option, and on this anchor point, I'm going to click and get rid of that handle. Now I'm back in control, and I can move this as I need to, and then I can get more smooth transitions. So I went too far there. So now this is definitely takes getting used to, but the goal is doing as few points as possible. You don't want to do this. That's not how to use the pen tool. The idea is the fewer points you have, the more you're able to get, you'll get a smoother transition and a cleaner selection in the end. Okay, so you may have your ways of isolating. Some of you may already use and know about the pen tool. I would say really try to get used to using it. It's in my opinion probably the most valuable tool to know definitely in Photoshop, for graphic design purposes certainly. And then once you move into Illustrator with it, now you can see I'm not being hugely accurate here. I'm just trying to get this clipped quickly so we can move on. But it's definitely, you know, if you're designing shapes for logos, if you're doing illustration in Illustrator, anything like that, the pen tool is the best tool to know. And like I said, it just opens up so many uses for you with Photoshop. Now, if you're wondering how am I moving that, as I go along, I'm holding my space bar down and just moving the image so I can get to the part I want without zooming out. So here I go, Option click again. Now these, I could spend about twice as much time as I'm taking here and be very accurate with this, but I want to move on to the other part of our tutorial, so I'm going a little quick with this, but this I'm adding in. I know those who were in my class last term, in the prerequisite to this class will have had some pen tool training, we'll say. However, I believe you've probably been shown this by the prof that you may have had, and if you haven't, that's okay. There are so many videos on this. It's such a popular tool and such a useful tool that you'll find a lot of resources. And of course, if you're wondering anything about it, that's why I'm here too. You may absolutely ask me. Okay, I'm going to get quite quick with this. So this last antenna is not going to be very natural, but that's okay. Just get on with the show here. So I finish up and I'm creating what's called a path. We can see it happening over here. So I'll finish this path and I have to make it a closed shape. I have to finish that shape that I'm drawing. So you'll see my cursor, it's giving me that little circle. That means I'm about to close that path. Now I could go back with my path selection tool. This is the direct select. You can see what it's showing us in the video there. I can go back and I can make adjustments to this. I can adjust the lines and adjust the handles, and you know, I could spend a fair bit of time on something this detailed. Now, in order to get that selection, with my pen tool selected, I can right click and choose Make Selection, or I can command click on the thumbnail here and get the selection. Then I can copy, go to whichever image I'm bringing it into, and paste. Now when I pasted, it came in automatically as a rasterized layer. So that's where I would want to make this a smart object. Okay, same thing we saw at the background. So then I can do Command T, scale it down, not holding Shift. I still forget that I don't have to hold Shift anymore with Photoshop. And then I can rotate it. So if I wanted to make it look, you know, very small, make it look like it was landing on something. There we go. Or I could have made it large. It doesn't really matter. So getting a proper clip on something like that is so important. And that's where the pen tool, I can't stress enough how valuable a tool it is. And once you really learn it, which is challenging, I'll admit, you actually you enjoy using it and you look for reasons to use it. Okay, so we have other butterflies here. So I'm going to deselect that. I'm going to go here. This is one that you could clip as well, but it's already been clipped for us. So we can, again, you could command click on the thumbnail, gives us our selection, and we can copy and paste. Or even better, I can just drag that layer, grab that layer, go to the tab of my main image, go right into the image, and then drop the butterfly there. Now I'm going to have to zoom out, so I'm doing Space Command Option, and then the layer's there. I'll do Command T, and I can size it down so that I can see it. But before I go too small, I'm going to make sure that I make that a smart layer as well. So converts to Smart Object. There we go. Command 0. So you're going to want to get all of your butterflies in. So I'll even bring this one in too. There we go. Right click, convert to Smart Object. Now I can arrange the butterflies in any way that I'd like. However, remember, you're going to want to name those layers. So this one was that little one. I'll call that butterfly 1. And butterfly 2, butterfly 3. You can name them by the colors, whatever you like. You just want to know which one you're working with. And if you've got all these layers, you know, I've got a stack of layers here, and you're not sure even which is which, remember you can right click on the image and you can select which one you'd like. I would also advise turning off auto select up here. Auto select is just, it's quite a nuisance. The better you get with Photoshop, the less you want it to do anything automatically. So I like to right click and choose my layers rather than let auto select guess what I'm trying to click. As if I turn it on and I click here, it's going to choose that. But if I just want to click here but get that, that's when I can right click and I can do my own thing. So I never use auto select. So I recommend having that turned off. However, if you're still learning Photoshop and you're trying to get used to it, you may find it helpful. Just know that if you're trying to select one thing and another is being selected, it could very well be the auto select that's causing that issue for you.